Awesome. Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, I mostly will just be standing back here, but working with the slides. Okay, really quickly, just quick fact before we even get started. In this exact room, almost about 12 years ago, I had my first baby shower, and I found out what I was going to have. So it's a special room for me. I don't know if anyone else is a mom. Mother's Day is coming up, so happy Mother's Day. And now back to work, right? I'm Shaili Guru. I am not a data scientist by name. I actually have bachelor's in biology. I came up through tech from being a tester to then a vendor manager to then program manager to then product management. I have been working as a product manager for over the last decade or so, especially focusing on AI products over at companies like Amazon, T-Mobile, Nike, Disney. Whoa. And so I've been PM or a product manager you or your colleagues have worked with in the past. The one that didn't always have the right questions in the beginning when I actually took on those projects. But today I want to share what I learned the hard way so we can all build that relationship that we all actually want to see and work with the people that we want to work with. All right, there we go. So at Nike, I was shipping the material testing machine learning pipeline. My data scientist was telling me we don't have enough data. My leadership team was basically asking me, okay, when does this ship? How many of us have been there? At least once or twice, maybe more. All right, I see a few hands. That's awesome. And so at that point in time, you all know we're sort of stuck as a product manager in the middle, and so is everyone else. I was new to AI product management. I was used to deterministic software where you scope, you plan, and then you ship. AI, as we all know, is probabilistic, right? A lot of us sitting here are data scientists in this room. You don't know the timeline upfront because building a model is experimental. You try approaches, you tune them, you see what works on your data. We, at that moment, in that time when I was working with my data scientists on this product, we only had 2,700 data points. Not enough, right? And so at that point in time, data scientists started building synthetic data off of that. But that still wasn't enough data. The model wouldn't necessarily converge. The data wasn't dense enough where we could find the patterns, and leadership was still sitting there asking me the hard questions in terms of, okay, when are we going to be shipping even a proof of concept for our material developers? And I kept asking the data scientists, okay, when are we going to be shipping what? And at one point in time, I actually just had to take a break and ask him, I only have one data scientist for this particular product, that, hey, I don't think I'm helping by asking, hey, what is the scope or what is the timeline? At this point in time, just tell me what the blocker is. And he goes, even though I'm creating synthetic data, we only have 2,700 data points. So I went back, got data points, and he kept experimenting more and more off of the 60 to 70,000 data points I was able to get at that point in time. What I was missing then, and what I know right now, is in every AI product roadmap I write, there is a phase before build. The phase is gathering data, experiment with algorithms, and then you also have to research. As a data scientist, you all know this because that is just what you learn in college, even building the data out. But from a product manager's standpoint, we don't know that. And so that is exactly the mismatch, where product managers right now, because AI to the rest of the world, quote unquote, came out back in November of 2022, let's be honest, right? ChatGPT came out. But AI has been around for such a long time, since 1950s. But PMs were trained on traditional software, 2-week sprints, ticketed works, fixed scope, predictable timelines. And that's where every product manager's training program does not teach. That is something that I do teach right now at University of Washington and AI product management courses that I teach. But then they get assigned to your product where research can take months, where scopes evolves are, when you're doing a little bit more finding, where there is nothing to demo for half the work that the data scientist is actually working on. And the system was built for the left column, and your work, you can't see my slide. Sorry. Someone should speak up that the slide hasn't changed. Because you guys have seen my slides before, right? Just kidding. And so, as I was saying, that where the problem lies is what we know is on the left side. What you all know is the right side, right? But the good news is you don't have to necessarily teach your product manager all of this on day one. You just have to translate for them. Really quickly, most data scientists think that sometimes product managers are being annoying. We're really trying not to be annoying when we're pushing for certain dates and certain scopes that we're asking for. Here is actually what is all on our plate. First things first, roadmap pressure. Leadership always wants to know when you're shipping what at what point in time. And so we as product managers always have to commit. And so if we don't know your timelines, then we cannot commit. Competing priorities. The product that you're building or the model that you're building is providing one of the products that the product manager might be focusing on. And there are 5 other products that they might also have on their plate. And so at that point in time, your PM has to defend what you are doing. So that's just one of 5, and that happens every quarter, if not every month, in their monthly business review meetings. Then there is a translation. Your product manager is in the room with CEOs, VPs, SVPs, sometimes even talking to the board, depending on the company size, talking about your work. They might not have the full context, but they still have to vouch and advocate for you. And there's a career risk. If the model fails, sometimes it does, and we understand it, the product fails, and at that point in time, everyone gets hit, right, including the product manager. So there is always that career risk as well. And so when your PM is pushing you on certainty, they're not being difficult. We're always trying not to be difficult, but we're always protecting our seat as well as yours on that roadmap meetings or that roadmap table. So really quickly, 3 moves that I believe you can walk out here and then start on Monday is each one will take about 5 minutes to learn, but a career to master. So first things first. Data scientists, when you all say, I don't know yet, what we hear is, I can't plan around you, right? Same data, different language. So the fix isn't about faking certainty. It's to package the uncertainty so your PM can do something about it. Tell the experiment that you're working on or the experiment that you're running. Tell them what you'll know and when. Tell them what you would do if the answer is negative. We can still work with that, right? Because that is still learning that we can take it back during our monthly business or bi-weekly business review meetings. The day I learned it is the day that the products we were working on stopped getting cut from the roadmap. One more thing, sometimes the uncertainty isn't whether you can hit a metric. It's whether the metric is even right. And so if you don't think as a data scientist that the product manager's metrics is right, stop them. Ask this one question of, if we hit this metric and if our customers are still not happy, are we still building the right product or the right model, right? That will put things in perspective for both you as well as the product manager that you're working with. Number 2, black box work gets cut out of roadmaps, always. And so the fix is to treat explorations like any other roadmap item. Define the hypothesis, define the test, define what shipping looks like, even if nothing is shipping, and that is A-okay. Or it's not visible, and that's still fine. Send a weekly update, what we tried, what we learned, what's next. It takes about 10 minutes. How many of us have sort of built an AI or agent already? Maybe now with that, it might take 5 minutes instead of 10 minutes. So it changes how your product manager talks about your work in every meeting that they're walking into. You're not shipping products or models, you're shipping learning. Your product manager needs the learning so they can advocate for you. And one truth nobody warned you about is when a model fails, and they will, as I mentioned earlier, Your product manager doesn't necessarily need an apology. They need the data so they can walk into the room with that next move, right? Hey, try this, where the hypothesis didn't hold up. I've done tons of hypotheses back when I was doing zebrafish research in my undergrad. And so at that point in time, the same thing. Hypothesis didn't hold up. Here is what we have learned. Here is what we would test next. And that's not failure. That's basically research. But as product managers and as leadership, we just need to know what's happening. And so that way, you can also stay in the frame. So your product manager spends most of their day in rooms you're not usually in. They're advocating your work in language that has nothing to do with code either. And so 3 things can help. One is bring them early. Bring this early into what you are thinking, not when you need a defense. So when you're forming a hypothesis, they'll feel ownership instead of just being told. And sometimes it's okay to not know exactly how to even form that hypothesis or what that hypothesis, how would that impact the business, because that's where the product managers can speak that language and you can work together and build that relationship. Number 2 is translate your wins into business language as well. Let me ask you, how many times, okay, option A is, hey, the model is 89% accurate, versus option B, 89% accuracy means we can stop sending these to manual review, which saves 40 hours of human work per week. Which one do you think works usually? It's most likely option B, I can tell you, right? And 3, educate without condescending. That is sometimes hard for some of us to do, but try anyways. Don't lecture on how RAG works, right? They can find that out themselves unless they come to you and they ask you, hey, teach me how RAG works. Anchor it to the goal that they're trying to hit. And the one that took me the longest to learn, documentation is leverage. Not necessarily just for you, but also for product managers. Most data scientists under-document. I'm not saying it's you. I'm not pointing to anyone. Because the work feels obvious to them, right? Because you've been doing it day in and day out. For us, we're living in a different world and speaking different language. And so write that doc you wish your PM had. A short, well-written document gets cited, it gets shared, it gets forwarded, and it also sits in the room with product managers and also gets to defend you and your work and stay on that roadmap. So your PM or your product manager is your advocate when you're not in the room. So give them the ammunition that they need to keep your product on the roadmap. So come Monday morning, because no one wants to go back to work on Friday after this, I can only imagine. 3 things I would want you to try with your product manager. One is in your next stand-up, share one risk with mitigation. Not just an update. This single change tells your product manager you're managing risk, not necessarily avoiding it. 2, send your product manager a one-liner on what your team learned that particular week, every Friday. Hopefully with AI agents, or send a reminder on Slack that it can ping you to send that reminder to them or that update before they even ask. So watch what happens the next planning meeting. And 3, ask your product managers what they're being asked by the leadership in the first place. Then help them answer that. This is the move that turns transactional relationship into a partnership. And you do want that with your product manager. I know I would want it with my data scientists. So I started off with Nike. In that particular experiment or machine learning pipeline, we went from 5 weeks of iteration for all of the material testing to 5 minutes. We shipped 6 months ahead of where we wanted to ship. And the lesson necessarily wasn't math. I would say the most important relationship in AI products is between the data scientists and product managers. It's also the most undertaught. Data scientists don't get to learn about product management. Product managers don't necessarily learn data scientists or data science. And so let's fix this and let's ship the work that you've been working on. Otherwise, your work might just stay in the Jupyter notebooks that you've been building. With that, just wanted to say thank you and see if there were any questions.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got a question for you. How do you work with PMs who don't understand data but are constantly talking about AI?
Was that someone from the room? Yeah. I would love to learn. Can you double click on that for me, please? Can you double click on that question for me?
The data or the metrics that we've been dealing with, even though we've been working on it for, let's say, years together, right? So it's hard where we're constantly explaining what this data means or why you cannot, like, let's say the number of customers aren't additive across, let's say, certain things or whatever. So it's hard, but then they're also like, oh, this is AI, and so we got to automate it, we got to do this, and hey, can you just put this in an AI tool, and can I just get it out? And it's like, they think it's like a magical tool. So sometimes it's really frustrating, and it's hard, but also we have to work with PMs day in, day out. So, yeah.
I get it. I used to be that product manager. Probably about a decade, 8 or 10 years ago. But what I would say is ask them questions as to why. And then if that still doesn't cut it, actually take them to the process of what does that even mean to build out that, if it's to do with model, what does that mean to build that model? Walk them through the process of, okay, you have to not necessarily just you have to gather data. AI, what does AI even mean? Is AI even used here or not, right? So walk them through that if they're interested in that. And if they are still not open to it, just say, hey, if you want me to go ahead and build this out, here is how long it would take. As soon as you give them the estimate, I don't know, about 6 to 9 months, I'm going to say, give or take a few months here or there, they'll probably want to learn more. Yeah. If it's a longer question, we can definitely pick it up afterwards too. I want to make sure that we're adhering to the time that we have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got time for one more. We've got time for one more. So our process is different where we need PMs to loop us, data scientists, in early on the project. What do you advise on how we should frame this so it becomes top of mind for PMs to involve DSs early in a new project?
Yeah, absolutely. That's another great question. First things first, talk to your product managers. Do they understand? Do they come from technical background or do they come from non-technical background? That's my first question I would ask them. But moving forward, I would also say depends on the ask of every project or product that you are trying to build within your company. Always come back and figure out if AI is necessary or not. But if you need to be sitting at that table with the product managers, actually give them the data that in the past, when we weren't on that table, it took us 3 months for us to just get onboarded. Or it took us, 3 weeks to get alignment because the data scientists weren't sitting at that table. As soon as you come with that data, as data scientists and product managers, they'll be able to sort of, the light switch will go on because certain questions I know you all are able to ask better just because you know data science better than the product managers. So just go with that data that, hey, it might take longer to get that alignment because we're not in the room. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Help me thank Shaili.